Let's talk about Curry Barker's new film, Obsession, which has released this week. I had the opportunity to watch this back at TIFF back in September. Let me tell you, it became one of my favorite movies of TIFF, and it is still one of my favorite movies of 2026. I saw it back at South by Southwest for a second time, still hit. A little things are different here and there, of course, with the editing after it got picked up by Focus. Still hits. Watched it last night at a screening. My goodness, this is definitely one of those movies that has so much rewatchability with things that you pick up on each screening. So I'm going to talk about the ending. I'm going to talk about sort of the whole like codependency part of it all, as well as Bear as a person and also Inde Navarette's performance. So I'm going to start recapping the movie. I'm not going to take too long on it, so don't worry if you don't want to watch it. You can just skip over here to the ending talk, as well as more of the themes and all of that Curry Barker is exploring. So you can skip ahead if you want to. But before you do, hit the subscribe button and notification bell. Follow us wherever you can. Let's talk about Obsession. So Obsession revolves around Bear. He has a friend group that consists of Ian, who is like his best friend, and also Sarah, who is a coworker, and Nikki, another coworker who is a big time crush for Bear. And all of them work together at this music store that's owned by Sarah's dad. Now, the big thing here is that Bear has a major crush on Nikki, like I said, and Ian's kind of like trying to coach him through it at the beginning, how to come up to her, how to invite her out, and sort of see if the feelings are mutual or if they're not, for Bear to just move on. But it doesn't seem like Bear's gonna move on. I thought it was hilarious to start it off with Bear sort of practicing his speech to Nikki with a random waitress, and loved that whole dynamic between Bear and Ian. I think Cooper Tomlinson has an incredible delivery, always has me cracking up throughout the film. We eventually see that Mr. Bear here decides, I'm going to tell her tonight at trivia night, which goes against what Mr. Ian told him about, do not ruin trivia night for me. It is important for me. Please don't do this night. However, Bear's pretty decided on it, but then decides not to go to trivia because he comes home to find his cat Sandy is now dead. Pretty much him saying, I'm not going out anymore. Sandy died because she went through the pills of his grandmother, who just recently passed away as well. This is his grandmother's home he's living in. He inherited it, and Sandy found the pills and died. So Bear's pretty like distraught. He doesn't want to go out anymore. This all changes, however, when Nikki calls him up and is like, I want to see you. I'm also putting my 2 weeks notice, so we're not going to see each other as much anymore, so just come out to trivia night, please. Bear decides to go, and upon hearing during the phone call that Nikki actually lost her necklace, he decides to go buy her a new necklace, but also comes across the One Wish Willow. Now, the One Wish Willow, as you can see right here, is something you don't want to mess with. I'm not opening this. I'm not breaking this either. Because the One Wish Willow will grant you a wish, any wish you want, but be careful because it might not be able to be changed. Bear, of course, buys this as a funny gag, and we see during trivia night that he tries to come up to Nikki, tries to be as smooth as possible, orders a pina colada and all of that, but it's to no avail. He eventually tells Sarah what happened to Sandy, and it's kind of like he's in a funk now. At the end of the night, we see that Ian and Sarah want to continue the party, and they say, let's go do some karaoke, but Nikki's like, I'm tired, I just want to go home. Can Bear just drop me off? Which Ian says, of course, we'll go on without y'all. During this ride back home, we see that Bear's trying to muster up the courage to tell Nikki, but she's dropping subtle clues at him that, hey, I don't really like you like that. At one point, even saying ew when Ian says, go take your girl home. So, I mean, Bear at this point should have caught on that Nikki just doesn't like him like that, but I said it. Bear is infatuated. He is obsessed with Nikki and wants something with her no matter what. And of course, Bear should go out and tell Nikki how he feels. And even Nikki at this point, when she's dropped off at home, asks him point blank, do you like me, yes or no? Now is the time to tell me. And Bear just says, no, just like a friend. We then see Nikki go back into her home, and Bear just realizes he just fucked it all over. And Bear realizes he just fucked up because Nikki now just is always just going to see him as a friend. And now pretty angry, he takes the One Wish Willow and decides to make a wish on it, not really thinking it works. He wishes for Nikki to be in love with him more than anybody else in the world, and then poof, Nikki appears once again out of her home, and she is acting very strange. And I really love this sequence because I think Inde and Michael Johnston have such incredible chemistry when they're together and really deliver on these scenes really great. We see that Nikki starts to make up things, saying that her cat is dying, she doesn't want to be alone, or her cat died, and of course this is something that happened to Bear. So pretty much you can rest assured that everything Nikki might say is probably a lie from here on out, right? As she says that she doesn't want to go back into her home because her dad is dying of cancer. We do know that Bear's grandmother actually died from cancer, so That's kind of a lie right there, but Bear decides to take her home with him where she is going to spend the night. She decides to kiss him, and then during this kiss, she comes back to reality of sorts. The real Nikki comes out and starts screaming, but then the fake Nikki takes over once again. Bear's a little creeped out about this, but decides to just let her stay the night. The next morning, when they're getting ready for work, Bear finds his cat now in a shrine that Nikki has made. Very creepy, very eerie, and he's just like, what the hell's going on? He talks to Ian at work about what just happened the night before. Ian's kind of like, well, maybe she's just on drugs. Maybe she took some Molly. I'll talk to her. We'll figure this out. Don't worry. Nikki decides to go back home with Ian as he drops her off. And Ian pretty much tells Bear, hey, I talked to her and I think she was just on drugs. It's okay, but you gotta just give her some space. But no space is given because Nikki shows up that night. One of the very eerie ways that Trey Barker shoots Inde Navarette to here as well is where you just don't really get to see her full face. It's just all covered in shadows. Really love the play of light and shadows throughout the whole film. This is where Nikki tells Bear, I have a crush on you, I like you, let's get together, and Bear's just like, let's do it. The film kind of turns into a rom-com sort of montage of sorts, which I like because this sort of juxtaposition between what's about to happen or what just happened with this middle part that felt like a light rom-com film really does elevate the film a lot more. This is where things start to descend into a bit of a very, very dark place as we see that Nikki and Bear are having dinner out one night when we see that Ian calls Bear and tells him, hey, so I went through everything Nikki told me about her dad and all that. Turns out he's perfectly fine. He's healthy. He's working. He doesn't have cancer. By the way, they wouldn't even have a chance to speak because Nikki and him are on speaking terms. So she's lying to you. I don't know what motive she has, but it's bad. You should definitely just cut it and let it go. Bear, of course, starts to really wonder what is going on. Did the one wish willow really work? He decides to confront Nikki about her dad having cancer. She has an outburst and she's like, does it matter if he does or doesn't? Let's just be together. And he says, doesn't matter to me, as he proceeds to sleep with her. And we see that this Nikki really isn't conscious about what's going on, and Bear's just there taking advantage. And this is when the mask starts to fall off of Bear, as he easily could have tried to help Nikki at this point, but because he's getting what he wants, doesn't really care and decides to just keep going with it without really having any care for her. So very, very horrible things here that Bear is doing. That same night, however, we see Nikki starts to spaz out. She's having these moments. She's walking creepily. She's crying. It's distorted. It's weird. And Bear is just there mortified of what just is happening to him at his, in front of his eyes. And the next morning, she apologizes for all of this, packs him lunch. He realizes that she has taped the doors shut so he can't get out, which I thought was hilarious, just seeing this duct tape all over. And he decides to go to work. She stays there waiting for him, standing in the same exact spot and just eerily smiling. And I'm just like, this is getting serious. At work, we see Bear and Sarah sharing lunch together. When Sarah confronts him about what he's eating, he realizes that it is none other than the cat. Nikki has cooked the cat and served it to him for lunch. He gets pretty pissed about this, but then Ian confronts him and says, you know what, this whole thing between you and Nikki is getting out of control. I think we should talk, and you should definitely not be the guy that's taking advantage of Nikki if she's in a dark spot or taking drugs. And that's how it's kind of coming off to a lot of people. You also are very clingy together, and we don't want that around us. And I'm going to put you to the test. Come out to a boys' night, don't bring Nikki, and let's see if it's real. Bear is a little worried about this. He knows Nikki's gonna freak the fuck out once he tells her, so he tries to figure out a way to fix the wish by calling the number in the back of the one wish willow, and the voice on the other side says, bro, you're out of luck. There's no way to fix this unless you just die. Otherwise, she's just trapped here with us. And he puts the real Nikki on the phone, who is just screaming in agony, being tortured in what I believe to be hell. Bear hangs up because he's scared. As he goes into the house, he finds Nikki still standing there from where he left her this morning for hours, covered in piss, covered in vomit, and she's just like, I'm sorry, I'll go freshen up, don't worry. Bear decides to take this time to tell her, I'm going out on a boys' night and you're not coming. Completely freaks out, so Bear just decides to bring her. And at the party, things get more deranged. So the voice for the One Wish Willow customer service is actually Curry Barker. Really love that nod. Finally realized on the third watch after hearing Curry Barker have a couple of interviews throughout the months. Very fun nod. At the party, things get very, very bad when Bear and the rest of the people are playing a dare game, and one of the dares is for Bear to kiss Sarah. Nikki's not going to allow this. She forcefully removes Sarah from her place and puts herself there, so Bear will just have to kiss her. So everybody's staring at Nikki at this point because she's just behaving so odd and so terrifying. She decides to break a bottle and smash her face with it. Thus, her and Bear have to go home, and he has to take care of her. Bear's like pretty creeped out about everything that's happened so far and decides to tell Nikki, we need space, I'm going to Ian's, you stay here. Nikki implies to him, if you leave me alone here and go to Ian's, I'm probably going to be dead by the time you wake up. So what do you want to do? So Bear's just forced to stay there the night with her. I really love that reverse shot as well that we get of Nikki here. It's so creepy and eerie and came out of nowhere. Really, really love that. That night, Sarah texts Bear and asks for him to come out to the park with her. She has some important things to tell him. He says, just text me. She says, if you don't come out to me, I'm going to you. Of course, Bear knows this is going to be bad if Nikki were to see Sarah show up because she already thinks that Sarah does like Bear, which is true. Sarah did tell the real Nikki before, so this fake Nikki knows, of course, that Sarah does like Bear. Bear's able to get up, but the Nikki starts talking to him, but it's the real Nikki who tells him, end my life here right now because I cannot continue like this. She has taken over everything. I'm just in pain and anguish. Please end my life. He says, how is it so bad to be with me that you just want to end your life? And, you know, I was just thinking Bear is just a piece of shit, honestly, for doing this to Nikki from the beginning. And now seeing her in pain and anguish, he continues to let that happen. But we see that he just ignores her pleas and goes to meet Sarah at the park. At the park, Sarah decides to tell Bear that Ian and Nikki actually have had a sexual relationship for the past 2 years and that Ian feels that Mr. Bear here or Nikki are doing this to get back at him. And we also get Sarah kind of implying to Bear, well, more like open that she does like him and that he deserves somebody better than Nikki, maybe even her. And Sarah wants to open her last acceptance letter with Bear to see if she made it into college or not. But before they can even have any of this joy, we see that Nikki arrives, cinder block in hand, crashes through Sarah's window, cinder block on the steering wheel, and Sarah's face smashed straight to it a couple of times. Now in the TIFF screening, it was a lot more times that it was smashed. Very brutal, very gruesome. Here it was cut down so they wouldn't get an NC-17 rating, which Curry Barker says. Now they have an R rating. So we see that Sarah is pretty much pulverized and she is dead. Nikki says, Bear, this is your fault. You're going to help me clean it up and we're going to be okay, right? So this is your fault. Just know it. It's your fault. Really love the delivery from Inde Navarette there because it was just terrifying with a dead corpse next to Bear. As Nikki is handling Sarah's body, we see Bear desperately go to find another one-wish willow. He is told, you can't make another wish, but you can find somebody to reverse it. He decides to go tell Ian to do this, and Ian's pretty much like, I don't even believe a word you're saying, but I'm just going to make a wish. I wish for $1 billion. And we see Bear just completely lose it because that was it. That was the last chance. Now his last chance might be for maybe getting Nikki to make a wish because he could tell Nikki, if you love me so much, make this wish, please. When he arrives at the home, however, he is confronted with some very, very gruesome shrines of Sarah's dead, naked body. We also see videos of Bear sleeping. We see that Nikki now has drawn on the same tattoos that Sarah had, is smoking, and is pretty much saying, I can be the girl you want me to be, Bear. Just love me, please. And we see that Bear is just like, you know what? There's no way to come back from this. I just have to end my life to free Nikki from all of this. This happens too after he witnesses Nikki kill Ian when Ian comes in to tell him that he really has $1 billion. And I just thought that's one of the most hilarious lines and moments in the film because Ian's so happy to get that money, but it's cut short when Nikki just shoots him straight in the head. We then see Bear lock himself in the restroom as he tries to shoot himself with the gun, but he really can't do it, so he just decides to take the pills like Sandy, his grandmother's pills, so he'll just overdose and die right there. He does so, and then he hears that Nikki breaks the one-wish willow, and her wish, of course, is for Bear to love her and only her. And we see Bear come out with a smile to kiss her, but the celebration's cut short as we see Bear just overdose right in front of her and fall to the ground as he dies, foaming at the mouth. And we see that the fake Nikki decides to just shoot herself with a gun because she cannot live without Bear. But then the real Nikki snaps back once Bear dies because, of course, as we know, once the person that made the wish dies, the wish is canceled. Nikki can now be herself, but at what cost? 3 dead friends, very gruesome deaths, of course. Nikki's whole face is mutilated. Very, very horrific scene. And Nikki just ends the movie with her screams as we see the credits roll. So first and foremost, really have to give it up to Inde Navarette's performance here. Incredible stuff that she is doing throughout, not just with her voice, but with her movements, her acting. Everything is impeccable as well. Curry Barker really brought out an amazing performance out from her, but also she has talked in interviews that she was inspired by none other than Mia Goth, who is in Pearl. And you know what? It's great to always see like these inspirations from these movies that are not that old even. Like it's good when artists pull from older stuff, older art, but I really do love when even the contemporary stuff is still being sort of inspired. So very excited to see more of her career because I think she nailed it here and really knocked it out of the park. There's a lot of homages here to a ton of horror movies. I really got Pulse as well, especially the movements that Inde did here from Curry Barker. He has talked about Hereditary, which is pretty front and center as well, with the whole dynamic of these very gruesome things just happening and like the shouting that Inde did as well throughout the film. It really makes you get on edge because I think that's just something that puts anybody on edge to have somebody just screaming that way, and the sound design is just out of this world. But I think by the end, we can all agree that Bear is not a good guy at all. He is somebody who would label themselves as a good guy and wonder why he is friend-zoned. Numerous times throughout the film on my third watch as well, I picked up where Nikki just kind of told him, like, I just see you as a friend and that's it. Bear wouldn't take that as an answer. He forcefully made her love him. And of course, the consequences happened because of that, because this person was forced to love him. He became codependent on her because she was there when he was going through rough times, especially when his grandmother died. And now the whole thing when his cat died, he sort of felt he could be back in that sort of realm he was with Nikki when that happened. So when it didn't happen, he sort of threw a fit and decided to make her love him, whatever it took, no matter the consequences he never thought about. And I think that we really see just the type of person he is. The mask slowly falls off, especially when he says after the dinner that he's okay with Nikki lying to him as long as he is going to be with her. Just led to some very despicable and gross actions from Bear. I also think not just the codependency that Bear exhibits towards Nikki is very clear, but also fake Nikki, and shows how toxic relationships can truly become. Maybe not to these extremes, but I think we do see that relationships can become this toxic and codependent where they kind of just destroy themselves and other relationships surrounding this relationship, whether it's friendships, also family relationships being destroyed by couples that are too codependent. And Barker has talked about taking the codependency to the extreme, but showcasing how toxic it can be. Barker talks about how he was inspired by a monkey paw episode from The Simpsons about a wish gone wrong, and pretty much that's where obsession was originated from. But by the end, I think that Bear realized there was no turning back after Sarah was killed, after Ian was killed, and he just had to end his own life so Nikki at least would be free. But at what cost did that come? The fake Nikki, however, was too late to try and make Bear fall for her, using the One Wish Willow to wish for Bear to love her, but Bear had already taken all of the pills. He was about to throw them up, but he was already too late, and he just went out to be with her because that's all he was obsessed with at the time, due to the fake Nikki making that final wish. I think the film does a really great job at making you feel uneasy and cringe throughout. It's more of a dark comedy and really a cautionary tale of many things, including the quote-unquote good guy codependency between couples, and also being careful what you wish for or who you wish for as well. You know, I think Bear started off as a good guy, but eventually this infatuation and obsessive behavior towards Nikki is what caused everything that happened in this film. Because, of course, maybe he didn't know that this would lead to this, but he had many opportunities to sort of go back and try to figure out how to fix things. He didn't do it until it was too late, until Sarah was dead, until Ian's life was in danger, and also Nikki's life was in danger. He could have done this from the beginning. He knew that this One Wish Willow worked, yet he decided decided not to because he was still obsessed with having Nikki, and thus we got one of the most bleak, disturbing, and downright sad endings all year. But let me know your thoughts and your opinions on Obsession. Did you like it? Did you not? What you think about the ending? Make sure you follow us for more on things you love. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell. 50,000 subscribers is the goal. Check out our social medias and make sure that you are following us here. As always, stay safe, stay positive.